No video games allowed. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Sonic Movie Show. The only I don't. What do I usually say? It's the only show about
The only
Sonic movie
show that
news.
does the show that does the Sonic stuff.
I started watching a podcast where they say the first and only podcast about news, and I'm like, perfect. So we're the only Sonic podcast. That's our deal now. Because every now and then I
There's
look
not
on the
another one.
iTunes, Apple Podcasts, and I search Sonic, and most of them, if not all of them, besides ours that has Sonic in the title, they ended. They're gone. It's just us. I think.
It was a COVID project, and then they realized they
Oh
didn't want
yeah,
to do it
right.
anymore.
So were
Um,
we. we
but we
no,
don't
we were a
stop.
year before. We were a year before
The
COVID.
year before,
You're right.
we didn't
right.
know. We didn't
That's
know.
right. That's right. Yeah. Hi, folks. Ethan here. Devin is also here. Say the line.
You two
Insert
ready?
Bart Simpson's meme. Yeah,
You
we're
two
ready. Yeah, we're ready.
Guess who says that?
At Knuckles, Tails, or Sonic?
No, Rouge. Come
Oh my
on, it's our
God.
girl, dude. From Sonic
should've known.
Heroes.
I should have known.
You
Every
two
now and then
ready?
I look on our own Twitter account and I see a Rouge thing, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's Devin's thing still. Our only
Oh,
YouTube comment
I retweet a
post.
lot of fucking Rouge shit, man, on
Yeah,
purpose.
yeah.
But
Yeah,
we're a Rouge
yeah.
fan account. We don't meme about it. All right,
You know what?
we live it. So
Devin, you and I, and this is probably for another episode, a major discussion about like streaming and all that stuff. But eventually we want to probably rename our kind of overall brand to have the Sonic
Our
Movie Show
channel.
be an inclusion of the overall brand and not be called the Sonic Movie Show. And I mean, Rouge the Bat would be just the perfect name for the brand. We'll just be called
singular.
Rouge
like,
the Bat. That's it.
Rouge's Rouge. Rouge's.
A
Double-
rogue
double-
rouges rise raucously.
Just find like the
R4.
most word salad name we can think of, so that no one remembers it.
As she
It'll be so
plays Ridge
unique. It
Racer.
will pop. It will pop up in SEO, top of the top of the list.
Absolutely.
But the issue is you won't remember it, so you can't search it.
Right. Well, folks, today is a very special day
Mm-hmm.
because today Sonic the Hedgehog died.
Did he? Damn, that's
Yeah, he died.
You're
And
telling.
then 3
wow,
days
you're
later,
telling me
he
now for the
arose
first
from.
time.
This is an Easter episode. 3 days later, he arose from his cave. He moved the boulder, and he awoken as a role player. I don't know, Devin, this was your
trying to
topic.
figure
I
out
really
how-
shouldn't be trying to introduce this episode because you're the one that pitched this episode topic. So I'm doing
Yeah.
it not justice.
I was trying to figure out how you were segueing Sonic dying into a Sonic RPG.
You
I was
can
like,
tell
is he
I
gonna-
don't plan them.
Yeah, I'm like, is he trying to do like a really like into D&D and trying to be like, oh, until we gave him 3 health potions and he came back.
I wonder if there is. I bet I can search on Drive-Thru RPG Sonic the Hedgehog and
Oh,
find
100%.
either like a conversion kind of module for like D&D itself, or some sort of like, here's our Sonic RPG game you can play as. You make your own.
I'm sure there's something out there,
hedgehog.
but it's probably not good.
We'll
like, I
see.
wouldn't
Actually,
expect
I
it
said
to be
we'll
good.
see as if we are expecting to see.
Well, hey, we'll see.
Yes, write in the comments below on this video how much you've played of X game, that Sonic RPG thing. All right, Devin, what are we talking about today?
Yeah, so like this kind of topic, came to my head when I saw this IGN article, which is kind of covering a Good Vibes Gaming interview.
know those people.
That interviewed Sonic Team studio head. You might have heard of him, Takashi Izuka. He kind of does a lot of Sonic stuff at Sonic Team, and he's been in the game for a while. Like he's been there for pretty
Since
much our
Sonic
entire
3.
lives.
So yes, our
uh,
entire lives, you and our, you and
Yes.
I's.
Before we
Yeah.
were even conceptually thought of, he was working on Sonic. And this article came out, and it mentions how one of his bucket list things to do is make a Sonic RPG. And here I'll just read off the full quote here that says in the article. It says, "Personally, I really like role-playing games," said Izuka. "The RPG game format is a lot of fun, and I've been yeah, I've even thought to myself, for the past 30 years, we haven't done a Sonic RPG. And I've questioned myself, why haven't we done a Sonic RPG all this time? How have we gone to 30 years with no RPGs? And he kind of makes a good point because, like, Sonic, for being like one of the mascots of gaming, Mario has RPGs, multiple of them. There's one coming out very soon. You know, I think there has been like spin-offs for other, mascots you can think of, but Sonic kind of, hasn't really had that. I mean, and he has actually, and I know that's something we talked about before we recorded this episode, that you knew of Sonic Chronicles Dark Brotherhood. If you're a diehard Sonic fan, you've like, no, there actually has been an RPG. But guess what, folks? That wasn't made by Sonic Team. It was made by Mass Effect and Dragon Age developer BioWare. So technically,
that's what to be a little generous to Izuka, I don't think he forgot about that game. I think he's talking about him and his team, like Sonic, like the people he works with, like not a licensing deal that they made with EA's BioWare. Although I don't know if EA owned BioWare at the time. I don't know if they had purchased them. They might have. They might have. This is like right off because Mass Effect was 2007. And Dragon Age was around the corner. So, yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't know.
But he did say, since he's been doing this for 30 years, that he, this isn't like a concrete thing, but it's like one of those things that, like I said, is a bucket list thing that he quote said, so I'd like to hopefully work on a Sonic RPG at some point before I retire from Sega. But, that's just a dream right now. There are no concrete plans at this point. And actually, this made me think of that tweet you sent me, I think yesterday, talking about like all the famous, developers and how they're all in like their, 60s, some of them in their 70s, and how there's not much time left. And I joked to like, hey, if Joe Biden can be president, they can work another 30 years. Okay, they got another 30 years in them. But no, I mean like
we want them.
But no, like, and once you've been doing something for 30 years, and he's seen video games as on the 8-bit screen to where we are now and whatnot, and having not been able to kind of do a dream thing of doing an RPG spin-off game of Sonic the Hedgehog, but it also makes me ask, like, wonder why they haven't done it outside of that 2008 one. I don't know how well that one sold. I mean, it was on the DS.
I think it sold okay. I haven't played it. I've never played it. I've seen some footage of it. One day I'd like for us to stream it on the channel, but I
mean, like, and I mean, I guess if you count, I mean, there was the Sonic murder mystery, which I guess you can argue is somewhat role play-y, but it's not in the video game sense of.
And you could say it like, oh, Sonic Frontiers has experience points and like a skill tree, but that's not what we mean by that's RPG elements. That's not an RPG.
And I would also echo too with that, like the
forces
Sonic Frontiers was there's only 2 trees, and you kind of just
it was just like either do it or don't. Like you're not making choices. Like, oh, do you like they could have easily have been like, all right, at this stage in the game, so to speak, not literally. You now have this ability. Like they could have just did it like that. And the same progression would have felt, you know what I mean?
But it's not like other RPGs where I know not all of them. There's a lot of RPGs that make it feel like you have to make decisions, but theoretically, if you grind enough in the game, you can unlock everything. But there is some RPGs where it's like, nope, you're locked in to this class, or you locked this skill tree.
Or story as well. The classic example is Morrowind, Elder Scrolls 3 versus Skyrim. It's the constant like I'm actually really smart about my video game opinions type online personality. Be like, actually Skyrim is bad and Morrowind's really good, but they're two opposites of a coin. Morrowind, it's like, you are I haven't played too much of it myself, but you are a prophesized person, but what that means differs on the different cultures in that world, and you kind of do lock yourself into one kind of path. But Skyrim is like you can be everyone all at once, and like both are very valid.
You can be the stealth god who also has 100 levels in magic and Arcana or whatever.
You can be a werewolf and a vampire and a werewolf hunter and a vampire hunter. You could be, yeah,
And a
the
thief. And a thief.
who has a code of no killing and an assassin who does not care for money. You know what I mean? Like, you can be all those at once. To go back to, you're talking about like, oh, these people, they're getting really old and, not much time left. Him talking about this, like, how have we gotten to 30 years with no RPGs I really want to do one, reminds me of, around the time Final Fantasy VII Remake was brought back into the fold in, I believe, 2019 when they re-revealed it, and like they had that great E3 presentation. It was honestly a great presentation. They had a guy like narrating and explaining the game as the gameplay demo went through the opening. During that time, I don't know who it was. I don't know if it was Tetsuya Nomura, or Nojima, or any of like the big people who were a part of that. And they were basically like, we're old. If we want to see a Final Fantasy VII remake, we need to do it now. We're gonna die before we ever see it if we don't do it. And that's
and this
the same
isn't like
kind
making
of,
making other forms of art like movies, where a lot of movies, even big budget ones, can be made within a year and a half. Some of these games
Right.
take 10 years. You know what I mean? If you're doing
in a
Final Fantasy
sense.
VII took, I know, a very long time. So like,
And they're not done. It's a project. They want to make 3 games, and we're not going to see that third game until 2028 maybe. But this, and like you're talking about like all those classic NES era. That's what the tweet was about. Nintendo developers, and there's also a huge difference too. This is they are literally going to be the last of an era in a certain sense based on how you look at the video game landscape. Back when they were making those games, designing those games and whatnot on the NES, even in the Super Nintendo, in the Nintendo 64, and even into the GameCube, and obviously the equivalents on across the industry on PC and Sega and PlayStation and whatnot. Those people were able to make what you would call a big real game, we now call AAA, but just like a big game, like a real game. In a year or less. So you would look at some of these people who are like, they're in charge of a team, a studio, and they got there after like maybe a decade of working on lots of different projects. So they come in as in a leadership role with like a ton of experiences. Nowadays, if you want the equivalent, now granted, in this late stage capitalistic, the way Western game, publishers are run, there is no work your way up to being at the top. It's just lateral hiring, and the talent pool is getting smaller because you're not. But the equivalent of this idea of someone, designing and like Miyamoto was an artist. He wasn't a game designer. He was an artist, and then he learned all that stuff. The equivalent now is like, in 10 years, you probably worked on 2.5 games. And like, yeah, you could round up and down, but actually, on statistically, 1 out of 3 games gets canceled on the AAA scale. So actually, yeah, you have 2.5 experiences.
as you're halfway through it.
Right. You have 2.5 experiences in a decade as a big boy, big girl, big, person, like game creator, as just a person working in it. And now let's say you become in a leadership role, and one of your team says, "Hey, we have this problem with this," and then you're like, I don't know, because my 2 games I worked on didn't, you know what I mean? So like the way the video game landscape is going, like these guys are the last of an era because they just were able to work on so many different things that they have this experience, like
Also
pool
too,
that
like
they pull
I think
from.
another thing is these big AAA game studios too, like have hundreds of people working on these games where they have separate departments. Like
Yeah,
back in their era, and Izuka's
Mario was
era,
made
I'm
with
sure
5
too.
people, or
Yeah, it's
something
5
crazy like
dudes,
that.
5 dudes all smoking cigarettes in like the smallest office cubicle you can think of. Just 12-hour days or whatever.
Yeah.
But in like a lot of time, it was like too is like they were just really passionate because
Yeah.
it's just them 5.
Everyone loves to talk about John Carmack and John Romero making Doom. Other people worked on that game too, but it was mainly them, and like they did it for love of the game, and that's why that game is awesome, because their passion poured into it. But like, yeah, what you're saying is there's hundreds of people working at these studios, and they get burnt out, and they get let go or fired, but not, like they get laid off, you know what I mean? And like they're
Laid off
not.
is being fired still. Like you don't have to.
I
That's
guess
the
to me,
truth of the
fired is
matter.
more of
But
like, hey, you stole, you tried to kill someone, or you
yeah,
slapped
but
someone
you're
on the
fired.
ass.
Your
Like laid
job's
off is
gone.
like we don't care about. I guess just to differentiate how I meant when I said those two
No, yeah,
things.
I got you though. I got you.
Um,
Yeah.
so like I don't see like now the obvious example people in the comments might be shouting out like indie games, absolutely, and that is where these people come from. Toby Fox, like as much as I didn't really care for Undertale, Toby Fox is going to be a guy in 20 years who will be known on a Kojima like level to people just because like he is a name, you know what I mean, that has worked on games. Mike Bithel's another person who's worked on so many different games that like, but they're from the indie scene. And like for the most part, we as, gamers in general don't consider them to be the big real games to the equivalent of back on the Nintendo Entertainment System of like I walk into a store, I buy Mario 3 for $55 at Sears, and I go home and I play that for a couple hours, but like nowadays it's like obviously we've talked everyone knows about the state of AAA gaming right now, but everything
Yeah.
needs to be, actually, you know what? This is new information. Similar, you and I loved Apex Legends when it first came out. We started in season 4. My dude Revenant was the hero that was made for that season, and they're on season 24, I think now. And they've changed their battle pass pricing setup to cost more money for less stuff. And their people are fans and whatnot are like it's got like 10,000 negative reviews on Steam already, and and all this and stuff, because like that's the state of the game is a game from 2019 needs to be a game that grows money exponentially. And since it's like, I say about the iPhones, like everyone who wants an iPhone, 95% of them have one. So in order for Apple to sell more iPhones, they got to make you get rid of the one you have. And like same thing with Apex, and lots of similar games that are old like that. Majority of people that they could get as a player base are already playing or have left. So they need to double down on the people that are there and make their money off of them as best they can because that's how they're going to grow that stuff. You know what I
Right.
mean? And like you
Because we're
spent
yeah. I was gonna say we're like in that era too of like 20 years from now, there might be people who've never even heard of Apex Legends, even though it was a big game at the time.
right.
But the ones that stick around, whether it's from luck, having great content, sprinkled through, or it's a game that has a good replayability, like Minecraft. Like Minecraft is still gonna. 20 years from now, people are still gonna, I think, gonna talk about Minecraft. You know what I mean, or at least know what it is and what it's about because they do a good job of still to this day having just enough sprinkled in to create that replayability and make the experience a little bit more better. They're pro mods, so there's like people have made mods. It's like has a good community around that.
It's also like there's a store, but like they're not selling features and stuff. It's just cosmetics, to my knowledge. I haven't played Minecraft in a few years, but like it's just here's the game that you bought and you just still own it, which is obviously a little bit different than some of these live service things. Who one day
What's I'm
Apex
saying,
will shut
live
down
service games,
and we'll never see it again.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Or there'll be a sequel that will be both. It's a sequel, but they'll get rid of the old game, like Counter-Strike has done, Overwatch has done at this point. So I can see that happening,
which
where they
frustrates the hell out of me for the sake of like. I understand for Counter-Strike it's not as severe as it was with Overwatch, but it really felt like they just took a game away and said you're going to play this one now. It's like, well, what if I want like. Blizzard has made World of Warcraft Classic, right? It's not technically the way it was in 2004, but it's that content, you know what I mean? It's meant to be the way it was as best they can. I mean, everything is possible over time. Every Nintendo game will get remade over time. Like they'll look at the well, and Microsoft's Activision's Blizzard will one day be like Overwatch Classic, and it will be the way it was in 2016 when the two of us fell in love with the game. We were talking about that before this recording. That's why it's on the brain. But that's the state of video games today. So when we look at Izuka being like, why haven't we done made an RPG in 30 years? He's also thinking, will I get to be a part of that? You know what I mean? Because the way, he is in charge of the Sonic brand, but he's not like the guy calling the financial shots at Sega, to my knowledge. I mean, it could be wrong, but I don't see him as someone that gets to be like,
He could
I
be
want
like
$7 billion in budget for a next Sonic game.
right,
Like,
right.
we know
But he might be
historically
able
Sonic
to.
games have a low budgets because there's a floor to the sales. You know what I mean? That Sega sees as a guarantee. But sorry, what were you gonna say?
But I'm just gonna say, I mean, like for someone who's been there long enough, and I know, especially in, these kind of companies that have been around for a while, there is a level of respect or opinions that are that can be swayed because they've been there for 30 something years, whether
Yeah.
they're either 100% correct or out of touch, being the opposite, where I'm sure that happens, and why we get some bad games sometimes, because there might be someone who's been in the game for some time, be like, trust me, we need another live service game, for example.
And there are people in the industry that have these like long held ideas, and they're out of touch, regardless if the game is like good or not. Like, I forget what his name is, but one of the main key people at Rockstar, to my knowledge, still thinks this way, that mashing X like an idiot is how you should sprint in video games. Because that guy still thinks that way, and that's why when you play GTA 5, you still have to mash the X button like an asshole.
But I'm a fan of that kind of chaos, though. I really hope the next one just keeps that, just because it's been in it for so long. You know what I mean? Like in a weird, like,
I guess,
just fuck it. Like, why not?
I didn't play too much of Red Dead 2, so I don't know if it was in there. I don't think it was. I think you still had to mash X. I don't know. I went to climb up my horse once, and I punched it, and it ran away. I'm like, I'm done with this game. It's awesome.
How to run in Red Dead 2. Hold on. I'm about to look this up.
All right, let's look this up. Because
I'm curious now.
That game is beautiful, and it's something.
Sprinting is the number one thing you'll need to know how to do in Red Dead Redemption 2 if you want to get anywhere quickly. Just like it works in Grand Theft Auto games, to sprint, simply tap X or A to run faster. So, yep, I guess it's still fuck it, dude. Don't change it. I'm on Team Chaos in that regard. Just because, you're right, Ethan. It shouldn't be that. But you know what? Sometimes you just gotta be against the grain and just
listen. We
keep
had
the nostalgia.
Even before GTA 3. We had Mario 64, and it came on the Nintendo 64, and it had an analog stick. And they tell you, you push it a little bit, and Mario tiptoes. Push it a little bit more, and he walks. You push it all the way, and he runs. And then, okay, cool. Now we're in Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare era, where you click in a stick button, and now you're sprinting. Like, that's one of those two options. But
you know
I don't know. I kind of am
there's
on your side with the whole, like, it's fun to make people mad. It's fun that I got mad at that, legitimately, when I played GTA 5 in college, when someone had on their PS3, and I'm like, why am I doing it this way? And I got flashbacks to Destroy All Humans 2, which... everyone copied GTA, Vice City, and San Andreas, especially on those PS2 era open world city games. And everyone decided, you know what, they were right. And then, someone from Rockstar gets it in their head that that's the future, is mashing the X button.
But I think just like in a stubborn way, I appreciate it. Like, don't fucking change. Why not? You know what I mean? Until you're dead, just...
Hey, it's just like
I'm
Nintendo.
not letting a Rockstar game not have a button for sprinting where you need to spam it. So.
You crawl unless you're mashing the X button in this in Rockstar's Babies game, with the Z at the end. Oh man, what was okay? It's just like Nintendo being stubborn about online. They have that whole NES World Championships game that came out. It's all about speedrunning, Devin. There's no leaderboards. You and I can't even play online against each other. It's local only, baby. Why? Why
not?
I have no interest in that game unless I could have like friends be a part of a leaderboard, and if they don't even have that in there, why would I get it? And you know why? Because there's people in there that have been there for years, and so maybe we do need a new generation.
I mean,
but
I always think there's always a benefit with new blood and stuff, but there's also an element of a weird humorous aspect of me. It's like when Quentin Tarantino does the foot thing at this point. I actually, hot take, I
He's
will.
doing it on purpose.
My theory.
It's funny.
He's doing it. Yeah, he's doing it on purpose at this point because he knows that it's someone brought it up, and he probably wasn't doing it on
He
purpose.
might not even have had
and then,
a foot fetish, and people just put two and he probably thought the shot was cool, you know.
Yeah.
And when he did it a couple times, Pulp Fiction, and what was the second one he did it in? Might have been.
I mean, from Dawn to
Brown.
Dusk, he like that's where I think it really started because he's like, of course he has he wrote in so that the hot girl has to put her foot in his mouth, like in the scene or whatever, and it's like, but does it matter at this point? He's definitely like just fucking with everybody by just continually to put him in there because that's why I love it when the artist, I guess, buys into like, you know what? Yes, that is exactly what I'm doing, and I'm gonna just double down on it. But go on.
We're a half an hour into this episode. Let's 30 minutes in 30 years. Sonic RPG by Sonic Team.
Mm-hmm.
I guess how I would see a Sonic RPG by Sonic Team, there's a couple ways they can go about it. And I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on this as well. They could do it's a turn-based game with Sonic characters in it. That to me seems like a cop-out because that could be any IP. They would, in theory here, be choosing one that would have a floor for sales. Then there is we try to do we take another type of RPG formula and put Sonic in there where it's like an action RPG, sort of like a Kingdom Hearts almost, or
could it even be like a Devil May Cry where there's your goal is to get combos and like, you know what I mean, to get more XP and that kind of stuff. Like there's a level of, you can both get through the game and unlock things normally, but if you're really good at the game, you can unlock cooler shit because you know how to already do all the cool stuff.
And that is the DMC formula. They didn't make the game hard to play; they made it hard to master. You got to do it perfectly if you actually want to be quote unquote good. And then there's this third option of like continue the Sonic gameplay ideas, but lean into RPG stuff with it. Almost like a Sonic Forces 2 being way more RPG stuff than, an experience bar that goes up just by playing. And like the 3 or 4 or 5, I think it was maybe 7 things in total, skills that you unlocked in like a linear tree that had one branch. And if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I don't even remember.
By the way, honestly. Throw this out there for folks. Dev and I have not played any of the DLC in Sonic Frontiers. We've intended to and just never did. Maybe it'll be a stream one day. I know I booted the game up, and then I skipped all of the DLC like information boxes and like, wait, why did I do that? I don't know what to do now. Like an idiot. So, because I think I don't even know. You could play as like Knuckles and Tails and shit, right?
When's the anniversary of Sonic Frontiers? It's like November.
It's like November,
something.
right? Yeah, but it's the Sonic Generations and Shadow that comes out.
Well, I was gonna say sometime in November, maybe we can do a one-off stream and just mess around with the Santa Hat DLC with. Whatever.
And the music jukebox that will get us flagged because we'll just be sitting there listening to music. We streamed Pokemon recently, and we must have just not talked during a battle for long enough.
I think the thing was,
flagged.
I remember we changed the audio because we were trying to do some other behind-the-scenes stuff, like. And I might have had it just a tad louder than I typically have, so maybe it just picked up when we were quiet for a little bit too long.
It's like, hey, I know that song. Like, what do you think the game is?
At least it didn't funny. Completely take down the video. But yeah, it's still annoying where it's like, no, we're not just uploading Pokemon Fire Red full soundtrack OST on YouTube or whatever.
Which people do, and then, and Pokemon Company, Nintendo's happy to just take that money off the ads, that is just the way it is. But so we have 3 different paths here. Wow, we have choices. That's an RPG. I'll put it in your court because this was your topic, and I'm just taking the wheel here. Do we want to do a turn-based Sonic game? There's basically a traditional Dragon Quest, old Final Fantasy style, Pokemon even. Do we want to do an action RPG like a DMC or an Elden Ring? But it has Sonic characters in it, or do we want to do Sonic Frontiers 2 now with more RPG? Boogaloo.
Yeah, because I feel like when I would honestly be interested, I think I mean, we've both been on the record of like even before Sonic Frontiers came out, and we were already happy before Sonic Frontiers came out, even if it was going to be bad, because we're like, wow, they're actually trying something that to
Yeah.
break the molds, and they're confidently going into it, and we got to just release respect on that front. It can be bad, but you know what? I respect that. You know, hey, we know this other shit hasn't worked. We have to try something else. But so I will, on one end, I'm like, I think it'd be cool if they do an RPG to like, yeah, let's make an action RPG where there's combos and the emphasis is on combat, less on trying to go through a level as quick as possible like Sonic traditionally is. I think you could still have that, but I think it'd be cool to uh, find a way to create that kind of like action RPG element of like I want to know how to do great combos, or yeah, you dial it back a little bit and you do more of an Elden Ring where you're finding weapons or abilities, whatever it is. I think that's what people like about Elden Ring was it had the elements of the Dark Souls games in the traditional sense, but then it had the elements of your open worlds RPG where there's a discoverability like
For sure.
Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, right? Where like that game, I think one of the reasons it got really popular is it's like, oh, you don't have to do anything in any order, really. Like you can go to the left immediately and just see where that takes you. Kind of like even if you're even going further back, you talked about Skyrim earlier. Skyrim, I think, is a great example. I've always said in I think on this show and to folks is that like my dad to this day probably has restarted that game like 20 times, the new character and whatnot, but he loves just like making his own adventures because that's what he used to do with his friends in D&D in the 80s or whatever, late 70s, early 80s, where, there is not necessarily like there is the course in Skyrim, the end goal of, fighting the dragon, becoming Dragonborn and all that, but theoretically you could just do a lot of quests before you even get to that.
Yeah. That's what I did.
So yeah,
I didn't care
for me,
about
I
the
kind of did like a heavy mix, but you could do that too, in a Sonic thing, a Sonic game RPG where you buy into kind of what the hype is of Elden Ring, but then still keep the core concepts of what a Sonic game is, and that's what we gave credit to Sonic Frontiers, where it tried something different with an open world, an open zone as they call it, but they still had the elements of okay, no, you got to go quick, you're gonna have to complete these puzzles, in real time. And then there's also still the mini games in the game that are straight up your traditional Sonic thing where, hey, just try to get through the level as fast as possible or collect as many rings as you can.
Yeah. Yep.
So I don't know where, like, if they just said, hey, we're making a Sonic RPG and you'd ask me, like, what is, like, my dream Sonic RPG? I don't know where I'd go. I feel like I'd respect either direction, whether it's to me, I personally don't like turn-based that much. Like, I feel like it kind of slows me down. And I also don't know how it'd work with the Sonic. I mean, I looked at screenshots of Sonic Chronicles: The Dark Brotherhood, and it does look turn-based. And I'm like, man, I don't know, man.
I haven't
but
played
I get
it.
that's not my personal style for RPGs. I much prefer action, and I want to. Outside of Pokemon, I can't tell you a RPG like that I've enjoyed really, like where I would play a lot of.
Here's the thing: when a lot of people our age and older, because I really don't think they're that popular for younger crowds. We're almost 30 for the record. We're half a year. Oh my God, we're half a year away.
We're getting close.
Oh no. No. If I guess I'll just speak mainly for myself, but I know a lot of people also would corroborate this for themselves. But the turn-based RPG, for the most part, like yes, people love people can and love the tactical gameplay and this and that for them, and like the idea of like you're constantly getting stronger, and that power creep is fun. That's why people like grinding, because they be like, no, I'm just gonna boost myself up and just wreck the next area. For the most part, I would say for myself, I love turn-based Final Fantasies because I love the stories, and like I'm watching and playing through an awesome long story. People in Japan love that about Dragon Quest. Like it's the stories you also make yourselves as you're playing through. Like that time I almost died to this guy, and we talked about as we've been doing our Nuzlocke run, Pokemon's changed from a Dragon Quest style RPG to being way more forgiving because the needs of its players and really its purpose has changed. But like that whole thing of like, do I need escape ropes? Should I buy potions? It's a gamble? I'm going into a cave, and like I don't want to have to back out and walk all the way back just to heal up and restock. I can make it through. Like there's those moments in the turn-based RPGs. For the most part, for me, that is additive to an awesome story in video games because, like, yes, now we get, our summer blockbuster style Sony first party games like God of War and Ghost of Tsushima and all that is open world. But, like, back in the day, your awesome story video game came from an RPG. It was usually turn-based because it was an abstraction of how these characters would fight. And, guess what? The people designing them in the late 90s loved playing them in the early 80s or the late 80s.
Right.
So, like,
Right.
they just love that gameplay as well. So, like, I personally like the turn-based RPGs just because I played a bunch because they were, like, awesome, cool, like, adult video games, in a sense, before we got in the Call of Duty, Halo, Madden, FIFA, like, this is what adults, NBA 2K, this is what adults play on their console. It was like Final Fantasy VII was the coolest fucking video game ever, and it was mature and it was for adults, and people loved the cutscenes, and it was a story, and it was a video game for adults, and that was cool. I played Kingdom Hearts as a 7-year-old when that came out, saw these Final Fantasy characters, and went back and started playing Final Fantasy because this was that was like there was the Disney shit and then there was the cool shit. So that's my explanation on like why turn-based RPGs are like still a thing in a lot of people's minds that are usually our age or older. I mean, younger people can go back and appreciate them. You and I were not old. We're not alive for the NES era. We were maybe 7 years in the negatives on that. You know what I mean? But I've gone back and and played those and appreciate them. I don't have the nostalgia, but I played those, and younger people can do the same. I would say what RPG means in today's context, besides like the like leveling up in whatever aspect that means, I think RPG for a lot of people means two things. Still means big story. A lot of people love that Yakuza game, or Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, that came out earlier this year. Big, fun, goofy story. That's why people mainly like that. And the other thing people that I think is synonymous with RPG is like an explorable world. Mainly now because of Elden Ring, and before that Breath of the Wild, and before that, yes, the Bethesda stuff. Excuse me, let's not discredit them.
Skyrim, or any of the Elder Scrolls, games. You know what I mean? Like
the ability
100%.
to explore and find things that you didn't know were there, and have them be surprises. In Elden Ring, in the opening area. And you don't even need to do the tutorial, and I never did that. I didn't realize that there was a tutorial. In the opening kind of area, you can go down into this bog area, and yeah, there's like a dragon wyvern thing down there or something. But you can explore down there. There's like burnt down houses and whatnot, and you can just open up a treasure chest that teleports you to one of the later game areas, and you're stuck there. Good luck. That type of surprise.
But that shit's cool though. That shit's cool.
And like, if we're doing a Sonic RPG, I would want, as much as like I kind of like and clown on the stories in Sonic games, I would want a big story. That's cool. It doesn't need to be like self-serious. It could be goofy, but like, give me a story worth caring about, and then also give me an explorable world that I do not know the totality of. I cannot. I want to be surprised, is my point. I did not think opening that treasure chest would teleport me in Elden Ring, because I did not think the game would work like that. That type of thing. Once you realize, oh my god, there are walls in Dark Souls that aren't real, they're illusions. I didn't think they would do that. Oh, my scope on this game has changed. Sonic can do that too. I'm not saying that like all of a sudden the homing attack doesn't work. You know what I mean? But like because they decided to have fun
I
with
think
you,
that'd be the
but
biggest
something
hurdle
surprising.
for a Sonic RPG. I mean, I think I pretty much agree with everything you said. I think there's always outliers, right, where you'll have people who are like, no, I'm in it for the gameplay, or I'm just in it for the story, and maybe a turn-based RPG's quote unquote easier to play. Like Pokemon, at the end of the day, like they're like it's pretty simple in this fact that okay, this type beats this type. As long as you have a good balanced team, you'll probably be
Right.
able to go through the game.
But you can
Uh,
brute force as we did as children. You pick your starter, and they're level 100, while the rest of your guys are 30, and you're fighting the Elite Four.
right,
At least that's what I did as a kid.
yeah, there's that element, of course. But I feel like the biggest hurdle would be for a Sonic RPG would be the story because I think he's much more marketed and targeted for young adults to kids. You know what I mean? And that's okay. It's okay to as an adult to play Sonic games and enjoy the story. Personally, I know it's not made for me, so I don't also get that invested because the writing is not made for me. It's usually pretty simplistic. It's pretty even like early Mario games where it's like the bad guy is this and he stole the princess, or Eggman is just going to destroy the world. Okay, which is fine.
Right.
That's for what the game purposes. That works most of the time. But for a Sonic RPG, where if what you're saying is to be maybe a memorable one, you might need a good story. And I think that would be the biggest hurdle. Is like, how do
Yeah.
you make a Sonic story that is legitimately a memorable story? Not maybe to the level of, I don't think it needs to be the level of like a Last of Us, God of War, or whatever, but like there needs to be something to it where it's like, hey, that was funny, like the Yakuza game you mentioned. Um, it could still have like a charming story or a cute story to it, and I think that's the route a Sonic RPG would have to take. Is maybe there needs to be some moral to the story that can like teach anyone, maybe like whether it's friendship or whatever. I know it's cheesy, but like that's a story that
Yeah.
can work. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Um, I don't know. Like I feel like that's
I
the
think
element. And Sonic has tried to do stories before with like with Shadow the Hedgehog, which we just played, where it's like, oh, you choose your own adventure, and like we felt like that didn't really work. Or a lot of the Sonic Adventure games where the stories are kind of just whatever. Like I couldn't really recite Sonic Adventure right now, even though I feel like I just played it. You know what I mean? It doesn't, which is fine. The games,
I
the
think they
Sonic games
tried
are
what
for
you're
the
saying
gameplay.
with Frontiers, by the way. Like, yeah, like
Yeah,
mentioned many times in the past. Like Roger Craig Smith had to do a deeper voice with Sonic. It's a little bit more serious, and then they made Eggman a father. You know what I mean? Like that type of stuff. They're trying to make it serious. I don't think it went as far as I would say like overall interesting, but they did. That was a good step because like, oh, Sonic's three friends, Amy, Knuckles, and then Tails, all have problems. You know what I mean? Like they have problems. Amy's problem isn't she wants a boyfriend. Amy's problem is I don't remember what her problem was. Actually, she had
I think it
something.
was those little chime head dudes.
But she
Like
had some
she was
sort of
trying to
insecurity
reconnect
about
them.
something about herself. I don't know. Tails was an insecurity thing of like, oh, I'm always second. I'm always player two, in a sense. And Knuckles was
Player
I'm
three.
well, in a sense, Knuckle. I mean, if they want to get existential, I've had an existential Sonic game in my head, by the way. The of maybe pitching one of these days, but they want to get existential, like Knuckles foremost, and then also Shadow can be, and even Metal Sonic be like, have this like I was designed to both complement and compete against your design. Sonic the Hedgehog, you know what I mean? Like that's what they're kind of meant for. But
I mean, there's one story we're all missing here that has not really been told, but has been told through many fan arts over the years. The Rouge and Shadow relationship.
of course,
That's really what
everyone
people are
knows
craving.
that.
So if
Oh
anything,
my
we
god.
should be making a Rouge RPG, but that's after our made up game, Rouge Lone Gun
Lone
comes out.
Gun. Right. I would say, and we're not pitching like fully. We're kind of discussing what we would want from a Sonic RPG. Maybe that's the episode of the title of this episode. I
Yeah,
don't know.
that may be. Yeah.
Something like that. You probably already read that if that's the case. It's probably the thumbnail, and like below this, it probably says that. A big story I should care about, and like yes, like you said, we are adults. I have the nostalgia for the Sonic Adventure era, so like I like Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is a very anticipated movie for me, non-ironically, because Shadow the Hedgehog is in it, and that's awesome for me. That's awesome for me. I care way more about that. I'll be hypocritical about my opinions on this type of serialized, commercialized, stuff like the Marvel stuff, superheroes. Like I don't give a shit right now. I don't care if they're doing the same thing in Sonic. I want this though. Put that stuff aside. The games nowadays aren't necessarily made for me. They want our money, so they're going to do some things that can try to get that. But the stories, again, they're like you said, they're not meant for us in particular. That still being said, if they are doing a big RPG, they do have the telemetry on how far people get in games before they stop. They know Sonic Frontiers has been out for almost 2 years now. It's 2022, so almost 2 years.
Bro, I
they
swear
have
to
the
God,
data.
that came out 6 months ago. Like
It feels like it.
that blows my mind, man.
It feels like it. They have the data. They know how far people got in that game, and you do a story. Now,
I mean, honestly,
how far
you could
in the
look at
story do
you
get?
can even look at the platinum trophy list because like most of that is
absolutely.
just pretty linear for the most part, outside
Yeah.
of like leveling up your shit. Like outside
Yeah,
of that,
yeah.
like I think that tells you like okay, just at least on the PlayStation, like how many people.
Well, I'm gonna do that. Nah, that's for another day. I was gonna do that now, but that's for another day. Yeah, easy. Like take a look at that. So now when you map a story onto that, okay, so who's gonna be finishing this game? It would be us, way more so than the young kids, I would imagine, based off that. And this is also assuming that they don't make the game bullshit hard like other Sonic games have in the past, where like they're still introducing new elements, but they also ramping up the difficulty, so it's actually hard. And as a kid, you might not even finish them. Not in a like.
I
this
never
is a fun
finished
challenge,
more
but...
than 2 levels in Sonic 2 or whatever I played back when I was
true.
7. So
True.
So
So,
just got too hard.
We would be the types of people that would finish a Sonic RPG. So they do also have to they would have to keep that into consideration, at least on like, on whatever.
At the end of the day, too,
young kids
like,
also watch
whatever-
YouTube videos of people playing games, so I guess they're still going to experience it anyway, I guess, to be
I
fair.
also say too, at the end of the day, like the money, like you mentioned, is the end goal. So it's just like, yeah, like of course you want people to like 90% of players maybe to finish the entire game, and I can guarantee you, like games like Last of Us probably have at least a 70% like finish rate. At least, maybe they don't do every single thing, but they beat through they beat the story, right? You know what I mean? Maybe they have like you said, data on okay, they didn't do every side quest in God of War, but how many people beat the entire story,
Right.
at least finish the story? I think that's a good point. Like, but I also want to say that on the counter end of that, where it's like they're like, okay, maybe not everyone finished Sonic Frontiers. We can look at that and see how we can improve the second game, whether it's making it shorter, making the islands smaller, whatever it needs to be. Maybe there's
more interesting
not enough
stuff
puzzles
early to keep people
whatever it
engaged,
is.
maybe longer. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they're like, hey, it still outsold all our past Sonic games pretty much, and was one of the biggest sold Sonic games. So like
So it
I think they
worked.
can look at that. So they're like, hey, we need to make it better, but at the same time, they still got the money. And I think video games is always different. I know we've talked about this, and it's like something I had to come to terms to over the last couple of years, because a matter of time or me being more of an adult now, where it's like I've learned to accept that, you know what, I can enjoy a game and still be a fan of a game even if I didn't finish it, as opposed to it's not as easy as watching a movie or even a TV show, right? Where like all you're
Games
doing
have
is
more in
pressing
common
play.
with books than they do movies or TV
That's
shows.
a good point. Books, like, even though I'm in a book club, in my club, one of my buddies in there always says that, hey, listen, as long as you learn something from the book, you can say you read it. That's his rule. So I always appreciated that. You know, so, but yeah, I think with games too, like it's a little bit different where like maybe, I don't know what, I wish maybe I knew someone in the industry to maybe they would know this. Like what is the average completion rate of a game? Let's say it's story, just overall, you know what I mean? Like, is it 20%? Is that considered good? I'll say for this, like emails, I know it's not the exact same thing, but I just want to show an example. If you're doing email marketing, having anything above like 50%, it would be like considered really, really good. Then you have another thing where it's like how many people are scrolling through the email, how many people click on it, immediately click away. Like all those stats are in addition to, but you're like,
wait a second, hold on, back up.
Yeah.
When I open up an email, they know?
Yeah.
Really?
They have, I mean, if it's like a marketing email, yeah. If I sent you an email, I wouldn't know if you opened it, but like if like
I didn't
Sony
realize
sends
that
you
information was sent back. Okay, because I was going to clown on this. I get Best Buy marketing emails, and one of them was titled, Ethan, open this to continue getting blah, blah, blah. And I opened it like an idiot, and it said, okay, good, you're going to keep getting these deals. And I'm like, oh, haha, that's a... But they know I opened it?
Yeah.
I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like that. That's awful.
Yeah. So like...
They know if I scroll down, too?
I mean, yeah, there's like there's services like MailChimp and whatnot that, you know, outsource. Like you'll schedule emails through their system and they'll tell you how long they spent reading the email, how long you scrolled through it, what links you clicked in the email if you do like a newsletter or something like that. So,
what the
fuck?
Yeah,
buddy.
I don't like that at all.
It's part of your cookies too. Like when you clicked on that Best Buy thing, you are more now likely to get Best Buy ads on when you're on Kotaku or whatever. You know what I mean? Like it just all works in tandem. So
wow, I thought the email was just like a sent message. You know what I mean? Like it's out there. Hopefully they got it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how effective email marketing is, like in terms of how much companies still put time and investment into it. I think they still do because if they have a mailing list of 1 million people. And you're like, oh, only 15% of people even opened it. Oh, that's not that much. But we're like, oh, I have 1 million people though. You're still getting what, like 150,000 people to open just that one of 10 emails you probably send a day.
And then 5% of those buy something.
Maybe. And then you're at still what, like 100 products maybe sold just from one email. You know what I mean? So like, that's an interesting aspect. But I think that you can use that logic with video games too, where it's like, I don't know what the level of success is, like what the KPI is on that, where it's like, okay, going into Sonic Frontiers, like, okay, yes, we want to sell X number of copies, because at the end of the day, that's really all that matters. But there's also probably other additional ones that are like, okay, if 20% of the players beat the whole game, that's a success for us. I feel like that's probably a good number, I'd probably guess, just because of how many video games are out there, how many people actually beat games anymore. You know what I mean? When there's live service games and so much other options out there, that I feel like a 20% playthrough. And
you also want to make sure that you find with the majority. Let's say let's say the majority of players never left the first island in Sonic Frontiers. If you make that experience really fun, inventive, and unique, a good amount of those players will probably buy the next game, even though they never finished Frontiers and they might never intend to. They're like, oh, I had fun with that game. But if you're, trying to ramp your ideas across the whole game, and you're like, oh, I'm going to save the really cool, inventive stuff for later, where the majority of players might not see it. Yeah, okay. I guess I get it.
I'm
still reeling about the email thing. That makes me
sorry
upset.
If that broke...
makes me upset.
I don't know, some sense of like security. I'm trying to see if like there's any like stats on like what I was talking about. Like I really want to know that, but I feel like it's all internal, and I'm sure that like if you're in the industry, you might know the general average.
Yeah, I don't think
it's not like a public.
There might be like an interview here or there that says like gives an anecdote about a game. You know what I mean?
I mean, like, the only thing I've pulled so far is like number of video gamers in the United States, 201.7 million, and out of those, 69.9%, have played a game on their smartphone, just for example, which is always what we talk about, where like the real gamers are actually the people on their phones, not the console gamer anymore. You know what I mean? But
like I would consider like myself an enthusiast gamer because I do play a lot of different
capital
stuff,
G, capital G gamer. You earned that title.
No, capital G gamers, they say the hard R. That's
and
what I say
review
about
bomb
capital
games
G.
that are woke or whatever.
Yeah, no. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, and even like the mobile gamers, the quote unquote average gamer at this point doesn't want to buy a $60 game. Like a lot of those Apple did their initiative last year. Like, yep, iPhone 15 Pro can play like super cool big games. Look at this. We got Assassin's Creed Mirage. We got Resident Evil Village, Resident Evil 4. We got Death Stranding. Some company did sales data and found that less than 2,000 people bought Resident Evil 8, I think. Less than, because it's like $50, $60. You know what I mean? And it's for, the most expensive iPhone currently. But, it just seems like a weird market to try to be like, yep, we're going to maybe make $50,000 off this thing, off this port. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like kind of the main, I guess, like thing with going back to just the main topic at hand with like a Sonic RPG, I think would sell, like you said, that floor, but that doesn't mean that they'll put, all their resources into making a Dragon Quest, Sonic RPG game either. I think if we do get a Sonic RPG, it's made by Sonic Team. I think it will hopefully be an original thing, whether it's, one of the three types of RPGs we described. I think it would be one of those things. I kind of hope though, like, even if you don't make a Sonic RPG, maybe there's a way to, like you said, put it into a Sonic Frontiers for the sequel, where like
that's
have
what I see
more
can
trees
happen.
and
not maybe
have
Frontiers
more
2, but continuing that idea of what Sonic could be, opening it up a bit more, and then you just add in more RPG elements and more.
And I actually
stuff.
do like the idea of like we talked about at the beginning, like what I would want from a Sonic RPG, answering that question, is if they do the route of having abilities and skill trees. I do like when there's RPGs that, not that I play a whole bunch, but I think what I would prefer and what would pique my interest more, and I hope for other people, would be, like once you go kind of one direction, like you kind of have to go that direction, whether it's through the story or through the actual, like, hey, you're going to get a minimum of 50 skill points through this entire game.
It would have to be something where they spell it out for you that, like, yes. And then, of course, a very player conscious choice a lot of games now do is let you reset all your skills. You get all those points back. Do you allow that? Do you not? Even Dark Souls does that. I've been playing through Dark Souls 3 and I can respec, and Elden Ring does this too. You can respec your character, take all those points back.
I feel like you could do it in Bloodborne if I'm not mistaken.
Might have. I don't remember.
I think actually no, because I think you pick that build in the beginning and you're kind of locked into that. But I do think you can.
But those builds are just starting stats. Like, you're not locking.
Yeah, I meant more like what I'm saying is you can't, if you pick one that's a little bit like on stamina, you can't change the class to like reconfigure the start the base. But yeah, I think that's what I would want. I think that'd make it at least interesting for more adult players too, where. And once again, you got to find that balance of like not making it too complicated for your younger audiences, because I do also believe that Sonic needs to stay for the kids too. You know what I mean?
And that doesn't mean that this is the only game they're working. I get it. Yeah, Sonic Frontiers, that was like 4 years, so to speak, of actual dev time on that game, and like that was the thing they were working on. Like, yes, you get the Puyo Puyo here or there, but that's not like the full team. You know what I mean? Spending the brunt of their effort. But if
Sonic,
it's Sonic Team
Racers or whatever it's called, Sonic Team 2 part of them. I think
it was. So yeah, okay, but they could ease. Okay, so here we go. You have Sonic Frontiers down. You have your base. You have another team making Sonic Frontiers 2. whatever degree that is. Let's say it's more of a faithful conservative type of sequel, or it is the ideas but more improved. We rethought how some things are a better game, but a newer, but the same type of game. And then you have another team, because you don't need the whole team to reinvent Frontiers since you're just doing a route sequel. Now experiment with tech and ideas that would be, now what if it's an RPG, and then they work on that as well. And then you have a project that comes out one year, and then the next year is another project. Sega has been on the record saying they want a Sonic game every year. That's why we're getting ports and remasters and, that type of stuff, is because it's like, well, because I don't even think the Sonic Generations part in the Sonic X Shadow Generations, they don't refer to it as a remaster. I think it is just the game. Like, from everything I've seen, it's just the game from 2011.
Yeah.
It's the PC port too, from what people have know the game's bugs intimately, said like these bugs are only in the PC version, and they're in this in this new thing. So like, okay, they had a small-ish team, a Sonic team, work on the Shadow stuff, and then they compile the package together, and porting it to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 platforms is a lot of work. But the main team is working on Frontiers too, but next year is there going to be the big next Sonic game? Maybe not. I don't think so. Instead, there's going to be another re-release of some sort. So like, yes, during this time you can have a small team cooking with ideas. Because here's the thing, I saw, and this is about movies. It might have been about TV show. I think it might have been Twin Peaks related. But David Lynch, this clip I watched, pissed that he was told that their on-set location they were filming at, they only had 2 days to do their shot. And he
only
was pissed.
2 days to shoot? He has a very
he was like, yes, they knew what they were there to shoot, but like he kept saying like that's not enough time to get dreamy with it and just figure out cool stuff. And that's what this prototyping phase is for a game. Like if a publisher really wants to make a hit that actually is going to be a fun game that gets remembered, not a game that's going to sell a lot on release, but a game that gets remembered like Elden Ring will be, you know what I mean, for a very, very, very long time.
And you said about money, GTA still, to this day, is always in the top freaking 20 games sold, you know what I mean, to this day, and the game is 10 years old.
11 years old. Yeah. So you got to let the team cook with ideas. That's what Nintendo does, but they have a luxury. They have a different set of circumstances that Sega doesn't have afforded to them. But you let them cook, figure out, throw away ideas, waste time. But then the game you eventually do make will be good.
That doesn't make line go up.
But they have the other teams making line go up. You know what I mean? That's and it's an investment because eventually, okay, there's been Ken Levine's game Judas. He has been working on a video game that 2K has been funding him for 10 years. When that game comes out, it won't make its money back overall long term, but it's now the groundswell investment for a sequel that will make a lot of money very quickly. That's why 2K has decided to keep the charade up of like, yeah, whatever you're going to make is going to be a hit. So just work. Just figure it out. It's going to sell. Because as games do, even, regardless of what we might think of them, they are going to sell.
If we have to, we will.
Sometimes you have to make that risk.
We'll find a way to put LeBron James from NBA 2K. Yes. We can find a way to market it. We can make it work.
And speaking about sports games real quick, you seen that college football game?
Yeah,
you see that selling insanely well?
I mean, I know. I mean, it's been gone for how long, dude? And I've people have been talking about it. I mean, actual pro athletes have talked about it. Like NFL players have been always said, "Man, I wish." And like now, I'm starting to. I know what like my dad felt like probably 20 years ago, where it's like, man, all these players now are my age or younger. Like they're born in 2005 and playing in the NFL now, and like they grew up playing NCAA 05 or whatever, and they so I feel like, I mean, that's a whole other conversation, but like. My thing is like really make sports games every 5 years and just update rosters and that kind of stuff. I actually feel like maybe in the long run they would actually get more money, but I also don't.
Making
it's one of the best selling. making an event versus that. But I don't know. They have the sales numbers to see, like, yes, it sold a lot, but like in comparison to NBA 2K, the last one, did it sell that much more where they're going to wait? Because I think the issue they didn't make that for the longest time was because I think when it first was starting to die down, it wasn't selling well. And then there's also the rights issues because University of Alabama, I'm sure, was not cheap to get in the game, and that's just one fucking school out of the how many there are in that game. I saw there was even like some D2 schools in there, so I'm gonna guess there's hundreds, which is cool. Part of me is like, man, maybe I'll get it in like a year or two. And
by the time this episode goes up, this conversation will be really out of date. But it was a screenshot going around online that, because, you know, like a lot of games now, you get early access if you buy the deluxe edition, which costs $100 in this game's case. You get to play it a few days early. So before the game is out, 600,000 people are playing it at one point in time. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of sales of a deluxe edition, you know what I mean?
Paid $10 more or whatever it is, yeah. So,
and that was just that point. No, this was $70. I'm sure is what it normally costs, but this was in this case $100.
I'm saying the difference in the price.
Sure. Yeah, fair.
That you're getting.
So you know that's like you groundswell. This is what I've said this before, and I'm very curious to see how this third game now sells, but. When Doom 2016 came out, it was a mega hit because they got to do the marketing campaign of Doom is back. That's not what they said, but still, Doom is back. Holy shit, that's awesome. Doom Eternal comes out. It was a fun game. I never beat it, but it was a really fun game. A little bit too complicated for its own sake, but they didn't get the same, you know, groundswell, you know, and excitement because Doom is back again. It's not as exciting 4 years after. Like, it's not when we were kids where a year felt like forever. 4 years ago, the pandemic started.
I think we both agree in the sense of like we like events, we like the one-off kind of
make an event of a Sonic thing. RPG, right? Don't make a sequel. You know, like just you make a big thing of it. That's why I like that Frontiers took as long as it did to come out because it was like, oh, this is cool and exciting. That's why I'm not that mad that they didn't immediately make a quick sequel, you know, but Doom Year Zero, Ground Zero, I don't know what it was called, the medieval Doom game should have been a Quake game.
Ground Zero, it takes place in September 11th, 2001 in New York
that's
City.
What Black Ops 6 is apparently is all.
It's great that now Call of Duty is getting to like the era where, because like there's no fucking way retro. Call of Duty, Bush is retro. Like I can't wait for like Obama in 2035. Like that's gonna hit, dude. Like I might.
We'll have the same opinion of him as we did when Reagan was in Black Ops Cold War.
It's gonna be great
in 2020. That was 4 years ago. Oh my god!
I just can't wait for like a. I think we need to go into Syria. Just gonna. Hey, Black Ops, Ghost. Yeah, Ghost. I need you to go to Syria. Need your drone strike.
Modern Warfare. I don't even play these games, and I know that.
Ghost is my favorite character I know nothing about.
I own every Call of Duty game released on PlayStation 3, and I've wanted to stream running through the campaigns.
I need to get a fucking... I'm going on eBay, dude. I need to see if I can get like a Ghost fucking shirt, like Call of Duty Ghosts. And so I'd be like, yeah. You know what I mean? Like, not is that nostalgic now? Will the kids be like, oh, he's flexing? Like, I want to know that. Kids who are watching this, I hope you're not watching this, but if you are watching this... What's
cool is things that aren't mainstream and are gone. Like in a fashion
I feel like Call of
statement.
Duty Black Ops, like the first Black Ops, like on a t-shirt would kind of go hard now. You know what I mean? Because it's been long enough, but it's still like
I'm
connected
thinking
to something
a white
modern.
t-shirt with the 360 case of Black Ops on it. That's it. That's it.
Just
that's
the
Kanye
do you mean like
shit.
a PNG of the case?
Of the
like
of the 360 one specifically, because that's the more remembered one. You know what I mean?
I want that, but I want the used sticker on it from GameStop that you can't really peel off.
I want the Wii version of Modern Warfare 2 or 3. No, 3. The DS one. They made DS Call of Duty games, by the way. You know,
we could probably make those shirts. You know, we should do that. That'd be kind of cool.
Well, you know what? We're gonna do that. That's where we're finally gonna make our money.
When we do our merch line, that'll be the first thing. And will it be copyright? You'll have to just keep it on the download, folks.
We'll do our own rip off of it. Well, instead of a dude, it'll be a cat girl. You know what I mean? And then it's a parody, and then we can get away with it, It's
parody.
Because that's the new mindset. It's no longer like when I was a kid, when everyone was a cool dude. Now it's all e-girls, like that type of irony poison.
Yes.
Well, Devin, this was fun.
Hold on. I forgot to mention we need to do a VTuber thing at some point. Just saying. We need to figure out a way.
I know. I used to think you needed to get like a special 3D camera.
I don't think so. I think
no, there's just a Logitech software that you can use where it just have the face tracking.
Just like a one-off stream. We don't, or even for an episode, we just do it. Don't say, but we don't acknowledge it.
We'll commission an artist to draw an OC for us. Just say, I don't give a shit. You just use one of your characters. I don't care.
Cook.
$300, $400. I don't know how much it costs. $600. Just give probably more because animating. I don't know how that works, but whatever. Make us and we use it for one episode. So sign up for our Patreon. I'm kidding. That would be such a waste of money to be like, please donate.
No, it's not a waste of money if it's for the art. It's not a waste of money. It's for the art.
As long as we get a great brand deal on that episode, then that pays it for itself.
What was the thing that like every streamer did in like 2015, but they found out that most of their Steam keys were stolen? What was the G2A?
Oh, that scam.
Yeah, we gotta do GTA sponsorship, whatever it's called, and then we just have VTubers and we pretend it's 2015. And we might hit that nostalgia pulse, and they'll be like, VTubing is back or whatever.
I don't think it ever went away. I think honestly, there are still like the niche, characters. Streamers characters. Would you call them characters? I don't know. There's like
personas,
the niche version. But then I think there is still, because I still follow, I think her name is Corone. Still follow an account that just retweets or tweets out clips of the puppy girl, the brown-haired puppy girl who makes the weird noises, the funny noises. Like, there's just like the few mega ones, and then there's like just like a sea of niche ones, or like, it's like any regular streamer. So I don't think it ever went away. I just think it just became like, all right, the fad has died down. Like, here are the three that actually make money. I think that's probably what it is. The ninjas of
we gotta
YouTubing.
We gotta figure out a way to do that and just play like Call of Duty Black Ops or 2 or whatever. You know what I mean?
I like to stream more on the channel, just random stuff I have. I have actually. You know what? I have it down here. I'm gonna grab it.
Ooh.
I got it without realizing that I already owned it, but not the full thing. I bought off eBay the Eye of Judgment for PlayStation 3. I had this as a kid. No, not as a kid, but
it's literally an eye because there's a camera. Oh, okay.
Yeah, because it's got the PlayStation Eye. It's a card game for PlayStation 3, where it has a mat that you roll out. This is a big, case thing. It's got a mat that you roll out that all the cards. Here's the starter deck, right? And they had booster expansions, and boy, they want a lot of money for that shit on eBay. I ain't doing that. You print out those cards. And there's little markings on them so that the camera picks it up in the software.
So it's like Yu-Gi-Oh!
It knows. Yes, it is a Magic the Gathering style game. I think it's more about like territory control than like depleting life points. But anyway, I got this complete in-box thing here with the camera and all that. I'd love to stream that. And this is the only PlayStation game I'm aware of that requires DLC in order to platinum it, which is against Sony's policies. But Sony made this game, so they get away with it. I got a lot of stuff. I also got, Devin, I got what I'd like to stream. I got both of them. I have all 4 games ever released that use PlayStation's Wonder Book. All right? You remember this?
What the fuck that is. No, I don't.
The PlayStation 3 camera, the PlayStation Eye, sees these and makes Harry Potter nonsense pop up on the screen. There's 2 Harry Potter games.
I know. I remember you telling me about this.
Walking with Dinosaurs is one of them.
That's right.
Pay $30
We're definitely doing that
digitally.
one. We're definitely doing that one because I can give you all the Walking with Dinosaurs.
I'm going to play all 4 because I'm going to get these platinums. But like, I own 2 of these books because the other one's in storage, and I got the
Someday when after the nuclear fallout, someone's gonna find that book and be like, what are these ancient symbols? And they're gonna make a fucking religion off of it. Yeah. And when they finally scan it, when they finally figure out to scan it, it's gonna fucking blow their minds, and you're gonna create like the next empire of some sort with that. And be like, the dinosaurs, that's what they worshipped. They walked with them.
I would love to do a bunch of crazy streams on the channel. But that's another conversation for another day. Devin, thank you for joining me on your topic of the Sonic
I'm happy,
RPG.
I was happy to produce this one. You can put it in my IMDb.
That's right. Remember, folks, we're a YouTube channel first and foremost. Please, youtube.com/@SonicMovieShow. I don't even know if that works. I'm told that works. I've not made that work. But find us on YouTube. You can find us on the show. Comment, like, and the bell and all that stuff. But actually, it does help the metrics, so please do that.
Especially if you do it at the end of the video, like right now. Like I
Right.
know it's annoying to hear it. I hate even saying like and subscribe, but you got to do the thing because
Hey, it could be worse. We could be asking you for money. We're not.
Yeah.
So, you know, at least I don't sound like you ungrateful worms must like the video. But, like, please just do it. We're also on social medias at Sonic Movie Show, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and the like. Audio podcasts everywhere you get them. And, yeah, why don't you do those things, and then we'll see you next time for another episode, another movie review probably, Sonic Movie Show. Until next time, as we always like to say, RPG out.
Out.